What do you say we talk about the top 6 vegetable garden problems and how to fix them? We get into this world of gardening and then all of a sudden we figure, wait a minute, we got problems on our hands. It's not just about having something that is absolutely perfect in utopia. Things come up. How do we fix them? I'm here to help you do that. The first thing that happens is you'll see something that's occurring on tomatoes and peppers, very prominent. It is called blossom end rot. And it was very common in Victorian gardens back in the World War II that the university extension actually, this is back in the 1940s by the way, that they published entire pamphlets just to teach gardeners how to handle this situation, because it's really kind of a gross looking thing that happens. Well, you're gonna have a sunken, leathery, it's either brown or black patch on the bottom of the fruit, whether it is the tomato or whatever. There's so many different things. You can actually have it happen on, say, tomatoes, squash. You can have it on bell peppers. There's just a bunch of different vegetables that this happens to. It's really bad. Now, the interesting part about this is that even though as gross as it is, not a disease. No, there's 2 problems that could be happening here. Number 1, it could be a calcium deficiency, or it's caused by inconsistent watering. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to water deeply and on a regular schedule too, especially when it gets uber hot. You have to water a little bit more. If that means coming out there every day and watering, then you have to do that. You know, you have to make sure that your areas are mulched. That's going to hold your moisture evenly, and you're going to want to avoid any kind of heavy fertilizers that are in that have a lot of nitrogen in them, because that leafy growth, well, that comes at the expense of a calcium uptake, so stay away from that. Now, a soil test can confirm whether you have high calcium levels, but most of the time the calcium is already there. In fact, if you need more calcium, just get yourself a no, don't do that. Don't go pouring milk on the plant. You can go down to your local nursery and garden center and buy calcium, or if you are inclined, you can take eggshells and, of course, wash them first, crush them, put them inside an oven, let them dry out till they get just a little bit brown, then you pulverize them into a powder. Otherwise, if you just take your eggshells and throw them into your vegetable garden, it's going to take 4,000 or 5,000 years for them to break down. You just don't want to do that. Anyway, so what you want to do is really pay attention to the watering. That right there is the number 1 thing that you have to really concern yourself with. Make sure that water is consistent. Remember, always want to have soil that is moist, not dry. And with most vegetables, you scratch in about a 1/2 inch to up to an inch. If it's moist in that area, like a wet sponge, you're going to be okay. But if it's like bone dry, like the Gobi Desert, you got to add the water to it. And I can't impress enough, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, if it's super, super hot, get out there and check that soil regularly, because if you don't, you're going to have problems on your hands and you're going to have this blossom and rot. Another thing that may happen is something called bolting. It usually happens on lettuce, cabbage, spinach, cilantro, even some of your vegetable, well, they actually wouldn't be vegetables, they'd be ornamental lettuce or cabbage or stuff like that. Happens to them all the time. And the word bolt actually comes from the same root as a bolt of lightning, a nod to just how fast that this flower stalk shoots upwards and outwards. So think about it, how quickly a lightning bolt comes, literally your plants, this could happen overnight. Now, bolting is when a plant suddenly shoots up a flower stalk and turns absolutely bitter. You can't even eat it. That's how bad it is. And it's triggered by long summer days. That's usually the number one thing. Rising heat, which the plants reads as a signal to rush into reproduction. Now, the fix is plant heat tolerant or slow bolting varieties. Read the label, find out, do your homework first, and then if you don't have any particular varieties, like a lot of us, we grow heirlooms, well, provide afternoon shade for the plants with a row cover or taller companion plants, and keep the soil constantly cool with water, but more importantly, with moist mulch. That's going to be the key right here. And then succession planting, or how I like to call it, succession planting, what you would do is you would plant small batches every couple of weeks, and this keeps the greens fresh instead of having one big crop that bolts all the same time. Because you're not going to get little plants that are going to bolt. You're going to get plants that bolt that are a little bit older, that they're at that point, probably halfway at that point to being harvested. They're going to see this and they're going to say, hey, I'm bolting, I'm out of here. It's a real thing that happens. And I got to tell you though, just for tickles, you ought to let a plant bolt at least once in your life, because you're going to be amazed how cool it looks with a stalk that's anywhere from 6 to 12 to 18 inches tall. And all of a sudden you got a big plant on there. Now, if you don't care, it really just turns into an ornamental plant at that point. I mean, you can't eat it. It's not good for anything, but it's actually kind of cool just from an artistic and from a landscaping perspective, because it's so different. In fact, when you see something that's bolting, put little dinosaur figures underneath them and like maybe a little plate of water or something, and you can actually do a little landscape design behind it. Now, powdery mildew, that's the third thing that's on our list over here. Powdery mildew on squash and cucumbers is so prevalent, and there's an old school way of remedy of this where they claim it isn't a folk myth, where there's been university trials done in Australia and Brazil where you would actually take milk and you spray it on the affected areas, and it's just as effective as fungicides. I've done it before. It's never worked for me, but you can try it. Of course, Mrs. Things Green, she only brings us, and she only has, what do you call this? She only has non-fat milk, so maybe you gotta use the fat stuff. But you know, powdery mildew, it's that white dusty coating that gets on the leaves, and it's a fungus, and it thrives in humid soil, humid conditions where the air is still, there's no movement, and you have a crowded garden, especially when the nights are very warm. Now the fix is to space the plants for airflow, water the soil line instead of overhead, and apply a milk spray, or better still, a potassium carbonate solution at the first signs of the spots, and then remove and destroy the infected leaves, because that's the way. You don't want to compost them to continue that into another garden bed. Number 4 on our list is blossom drop on tomatoes and peppers. Isn't that the most horrible thing, that when you go out and you see flowers on the ground, or maybe they didn't form completely and you're just not getting anything? Well, a lot of times you have things like tomatoes, and they may be all self-pollinating, and they rely on the wind or vibration rather than bees, which is why a gentle shake of the plant, of the cage, is a real difference to help the fruit set. So those particular plants that are self-pollinated, it's not a bad idea to do that. You know, it could be Oh, I don't know. I'm just trying to think right now. Well, those are the two that I think of, the peppers and the tomatoes. When you take and you just shake them a little bit, just take a broom if you want to. You don't have to do anything real drastic. Just move them around. Yeah, and then the pollen gets released. But here's the whole thing though. You have to do this when daytime temperatures push. Before they hit the mid 90s, and when the nights are below or above 70s, it's not going to happen, because what happens is that the pollen becomes sterile or it becomes too sticky and it can't transfer, and the flowers will just simply fall off when you're in that range. So between 70 and 90 in the afternoon, 70 at night, it's a huge problem. Okay, so how do we fix this though? That's the whole thing. Well, if you use light shade cloth during the hottest stretch of the afternoons, sun, water consistently, and I mean not sun. Yeah, I lost my train of thought. The fix is that you use light shade cloth during the hottest stretch of the afternoon, because you don't want them to get too hot to get that stickiness going on. Of course, you want to water regularly, and that's going to help reduce the plant stress. And then once again, kind of shake them or tap the flowers or the clusters, and that's going to really move the pollen really well. And then, of course, once again, do your homework. There are heat set variety tomatoes that are bred to keep fruiting throughout the summer's peak, but they tolerate the temperature swings, and they're able to stall standard varieties. And that right there is what gets them. In fact, there's a company, I don't remember what their name are. They used to be a catalog company. I'm sure they still are. You know, they had some like 430 different varieties of tomatoes, and those tomatoes are grown all over the United States. For some areas, I used to have a friend of mine who used to do a radio show up in the Reno, Nevada area, and he says, yeah, I've got 23 growing days, Nick, it's awesome. Well, he had to grow plants that have a very short fruiting time period because the temperatures were just too extreme. For very short areas, there are tomatoes for that. For longer areas, then there's tomatoes for that, as well as these heat varieties. Now, the next thing we have to concentrate on is the summer pest pressure. We're talking aphids, squash bugs, hornworms. In fact, the tomato hornworm can turn into an amazing looking 5-spotted hawkmouth. You ever see one of those? I've posted them online recently, and I took a video of it too. They pretty much come at nighttime. They're pollinators, but people get freaked out about them. But sometimes they're mistaken for a hummingbird because of how it hovers over the plant. Oddly enough, when I first saw it during the middle of the day, that's what I thought it was. And when I got a closer look at it, it's like, wait a minute. It's one of those spotted hawk moths. Anyway, warm weather speeds up insect cycles. So populations of these insects literally can explode. So we're just talking within a few days if it's left unchecked. So like for tomato hornworms, one of the natural things that you can do is take a piece of paper and all you got to do is take a piece of paper and then take a knife or a pair of scissors and like you do a ribbon, you put it against it and it curls up. Put this at the base of the plant, and they don't like to dig through that. It doesn't get much more organic or safer to do something like that. So kind of keep that in mind. The other thing is that they usually do come out at nighttime, so you want to take and just pick them up and throw them away. Real simple. Now, the fix for a lot of this stuff is you do want to check the underside of the leaves every few days, hand pick the larger of the insects, and the squash bugs, knock the aphids off with a strong spray of water or insecticidal soap. That helps tremendously for these things. And then you want to encourage beneficial insects like ladybugs, lacewings, parasitic wasps by planting small herbs such as dill and fennel nearby, and it's really going to keep those natural pests around. Or if you want, a lot of nurseries, they do sell beneficial insects. So you can get a jump on this. You could put those plants in, or you could put in pheromone trap. I don't want to call them pheromone traps, but pheromone attractors. That helps as well. They will come because of the scent that's around. And once they're there, they're going to eat all the bad stuff. And then when there's nothing to eat any longer, you got to remember, you can't corral these things. They're going to take off. They're going to leave. That's the way natural and organic insect control works. But the pheromones traps, they work, they're just great. Now, here's the thing about inconsistent watering. Drought stress, you're going to get fruit cracking. Cracked tomatoes, for instance, are still perfectly edible. And by the way, I don't know if I remembered it or not, but let's go back to what we first started with the blossom end rot. It's gross, it's disgusting, cut it off. Yeah, it's just fine. When you get something that's called cat facing, and it's all kind of wrinkly and kind of all, heirlooms, for instance, they get that. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Go ahead and just cut it off and eat it. It's just kind of gross. But anyway, usually what happens is you'll get a dry spell, and then you'll get a heavy rain or a lot of irrigation. And then what happens is that you get the splitting, and they swell too fast, and the skin becomes thin. So the consistency over here is really important. So keep a steady watering schedule of about 1 to 1.5 inches per week. Apply 2 to 3 inches of mulch as a buffer zone for this whole thing, and then water early in the morning, and that reduces any kind of evaporation and stress. And for raised beds, you need to make sure that, have a drip system. Use a soaker hose. So I'm a big fan of soaker hoses. That helps the moisture stay in for a longer period of time. If you're able to, be certain to put it on a timer of some sort. I have all my stuff on timers. Super simple. You turn a knob, boom, it's done. Instead of these battery operated ones to where you kind of forget about your garden, it forces me to go out there, check things. If it needs it, then I water it. If it doesn't need it, then I don't water it. So that being said, those are the top 6 vegetable garden problems that you're going to see in your vegetable garden, but they're easily taken care of. And there is a theme with a lot of this. If you can keep your water consistent and you keep everything moist, not wet, you deep water so those roots can go down as far as possible, you are going to have a successful garden, and those problems will be less. I'll tell you right now, you're going to have insect problems. It's just the nature of growing vegetables. But following this information, it'll be a whole lot less, and you'll be able to enjoy your garden that much more.